Welcome back to the Dwarfs campaign Abridged. In the previous part, we encountered some issues because the enemy started to kill us, and that's something new. Well, we eventually got around it with some situational advantages that allowed us to overcome their special units. As for their normal units, well, they still don't stand much chance, so that's okay. After the mess was over, we've still got to press on against these Black Pyramid of Nagash skeletons to take a certain Black Pyramid of Nagash. They are going to have a full stack of garrison and a few extra units too. I'm going to set up a siege and start making a load of siege equipment. Our armies are still damaged after the previous kerfuffles. However, we can very slowly actually regenerate while we have the enemy under siege. We can also regenerate outside of the siege if we go into the fortified stance, which we can't do right now due to lack of movement on that second army. But essentially, if we stand here, we'll get stronger, they'll eventually get weaker, so time's on our side. Here was an interesting turn up for the books. An orc faction spawned nearby, and they were willing to join my war against the sentinels, the guys who own this pyramid. I thought, well, fine, I guess you might as well. The issue will be, though, that because we're not allied to them, I don't think they can help us with the siege by coming and joining an assault. Here, by the way, is what my other big army is doing, chasing the beastmen all over the map, backwards and forwards. They don't have to engage us if they don't want to, and they don't, so we're just wasting tons of money and time not achieving anything, trying to stop them from blowing up any more of our territory if we can. Here's the orc army. It does come over and stand next to the siege. I thought maybe it would help us out, but no. In fact, with this siege setup, even our own second army isn't helping. Looks like we need to inch a bit closer. I figured I was close enough there. We can now, though, put that second army into the fortification stance as well. That will slowly bring their troops back, but we can bring them back a bit faster also using recruitment. And on top of that, I've now got the Dogs of War mod that somebody recommended. This lets you hire quote-unquote mercenaries. Turns out it's extremely overpowered. You can hire any unit from the game at any time. So this is really a cheat mod, but I am going to use it a tiny bit right now for plot reasons, because I thought since these orcs have got themselves involved, let's say the plot is that some of them actually joined us. So with that in mind, I thought I'll hire some orc units. I didn't really know what half of these things were, so I bought whatever this was, the Savage Rogue Idol. I thought that can be the reason why they've joined us in the plot. We'll come up with something for that, and then we'll throw in some Savage Orc boys, because this is a Savage Orc style faction, to just be some meat for us. That might be useful in a siege, having some disposable units. They are recruited at half strength for some reason, so they'll now start replenishing as well. I guess that's the one uncheaty part of it. You don't get a full unit at full strength, you get half the unit. Still pretty cheaty. I don't think I'll use that too much because it's just so exploitable. Anyway, moving on. We do get a minor chance to bring the beastmen down. Some of their troops get ambushed in one of these underway interceptions things. Or actually, that's a beast paths interception, a slightly different but identical mechanic. Don't really know what's going on with that. Here's me trying to pay the main Dwarf faction loads of money to trade with me. They won't have anything to do with me, the actual Dwarves. They're also really powerful, which is another aspect that is going to damage my plot, because they need to not be powerful in my plot. We'll come back to that later. Suffice to say, we weren't able to get even the most basic relations with them, unfortunately. Now, we are going to get to engage the main Beastman force, just not in the way I wanted. We pursued them for a while until they reached Firus and they decided to attack it. However, it's a balanced setup. We've got some garrison here, so might as well try to stop them with this battle. Seems I forgot to film the replay, but there's not that much to this one, as you'll soon see. First, we take care of those Minotaurs with an early volley, and the explosive shot gives a nice display as the Minotaurs completely get annihilated. Then all of the enemy units start to appear elsewhere. I mentioned this earlier in the series. Their stuff can hide in the open, so they just kind of show up in front of you suddenly. Well, that's fine. We'll open fire and do the damage. You can see, by the way, I'm not playing the game. I'm not giving any orders. This is absolutely perfect. I can just watch the flashing lights, which is all I really want from life in general. Those lights might even be helping me out, because the knockback effect is making the enemy a bit slower to come towards us, plus a lot of their units are just running all over the place. So we're not being that heavily engaged, and the longer they take to get into melee, the more time we have to not be taking friendly fire damage from those explosives and be doing more effective damage. That will soon allow us to win this battle. The enemy still have the advantage, but we've already won. They're in position, they're standing in front of our guns with most of their stuff. Here is 1 minute later, we've killed most of their stuff and it's now running all over the field. Just a shame we can't really do anything to catch up and finish this army off. They're still going to be alive on the campaign map. But oh well, we've defended this settlement easily. We lost practically nothing, even less than it said in the battle because of the jank mentioned in the first part. And it's garrison, so their lives don't matter, as mentioned many times. What I hoped was that now I'd be able to bring my second army in to finish the enemy off, since they were delayed by doing that. But no, we can get close, but not quite close enough. The chase will have to continue. We're now going to bring down an additional army to help with the pyramid situation. I had this stack sitting up at Kemri, just in case really. It was just sitting there in case something happened in that volatile corner. We didn't use it for anything, and now we can use it for this, because it's got a whole load of gyrocopter transports, 4 of them. So we can drop infantry behind the walls, making it particularly interesting to use in a siege. We have the advantage, we can auto-resolve this, but I want to do it manually. The downside is that manually, I can only bring 1 of the 2 reinforcement stacks. I wanted to bring both the one with the helicopters and the one with the orcs for added fun. So I'm actually going to use this AI control feature, where you turn over one of the armies to the AI. This allows you to break the unit limit, but you never know what the AI is going to do. The AI will have to control the one with the orcs, because we need to micro the helicopters to do something specific. With the orcs, I just wanted them to be in front to take some blows. Well, we'll see the AI kind of does that with them as the battle goes on. I'm doing the same thing with Story right now. He's advancing with a single siege tower, just to make the enemy's defense towers shoot him instead of everything else. Plus, we've got a load of siege towers just sitting around. They're cover right now. Our armies can just sit behind these things and not get hit by the tower projectiles. But since they're shooting at Story, that's not really a problem. He can just get his siege tower killed, and that will buy us some time. Here's the AI-controlled army, and there are the orcs. They're just going to run right in, which is what I wanted. They need to die instead of the other units to help us get up on the walls. And here's that other orc thing that I recruited. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like a banner carrier or something. It's a gigantic thing. I'd never seen this before. Maybe it's a DLC unit or something added in a patch. Pretty cool, a giant rock orc. Pretty useful for a siege, but the AI isn't going to do anything too creative with it. We probably could run it in to blow up their gates. There's a cool flying pyramid in the background, continuing the tradition of the backgrounds of sieges being more interesting than the playable area. We do have one interesting feature though. There's a slight raise towards the edge of the map that allows me to shoot towards the top of the wall and clear out all of these archers. That's much more effective than shooting up at the wall from below. So there we go, we made use of a terrain feature, a rare thing in a siege battle. Taking a bit of catapult fire from inside, not too much we can do about that for now. We do have though the gyrocopters now flying to the enemy's back lines to be annoying. Taking out the catapults would be ideal, but they're heavily defended by other stuff, so we're going to land the troops elsewhere. Here are the orcs getting killed as planned, so good job AI. It just put them in front of the tower wasted time killing the orcs, and now I've killed the tower. Unfortunately, the AI's gunners are going to be firing at the wall where the enemy's archers are, and they don't have line of sight, so they effectively did nothing for most of the rest of this battle. Here are the line breakers, who are the units inside those gyrocopter transports. They'll be facing one enemy unit. They can surely win that battle. There are 4 units on my side on top of each other. My smaller gyrocopters were going to try and take out the enemy's catapults, but failed abysmally and nearly died. And the transports can now shoot at the back of these infantry and just help take them out. We'll soon have that back corner of the map secured and can even open a gate over there. Meanwhile, the ladders are in position. It's time to storm these walls with the orcs leading the charge. Absolutely perfect. The walls look pretty clear, but the enemy quickly deploy all of their infantry up to challenge us here. So it's just going to be a grind with stuff fighting stuff. In this case, doesn't matter who dies, orcs and skeletons, we win either way. Story is nearby fighting with a giant scorpion. Not sure what that scorpion's supposed to be good against, but I liked the odds of sending a hero to take it down. Didn't really work out all that well, actually. We've got the enemy's main gate here open though by just driving right through with Uldor's tank, so we can swarm on in. We're not going to make much progress because we get engaged just inside the gates, but that's fine, more chances to kill stuff. They even had some of those great bows back here. Fortunately in this siege they can't use them since they can't go up onto the wall, so we avoided any disasters there. Our torpedo launchers are sniping away towards the middle of the map, landing loads of shots on that Necro Sphinx. That's pretty nice. They might even be able to hit some infantry hiding back there, but their arc of fire is too narrow to do much else. Here comes the gigantic stone orc thing, and it comes in to fight that scorpion, a classic battle. A look at that cool attack. This thing has some decent animations. CA clearly made an unlimited amount of money from selling all that DLC with their huge markups. So yes, they've made some cool animations for their new stuff. You love to see it, especially because I didn't pay for that, whatever it actually is. I'm sure it was free LC in some way. Story is nearly dead in the corner because this guy with a whip on a chariot is just out meleeing him. That was surprising and unfortunate. I think I got him out alive in the end. The main fight by the gate is coming to a close, helped up by the fact I'm throwing satchel charges in with my saboteurs. Elsewhere, we're just swarming all over the place with numbers now. Our line breakers, while I think they're just like an anti-infantry charging unit, are doing good enough en masse at taking down the enemy's giant monsters, especially with those gyrocopters providing constant support. And the big rock thing is clearing up the mess in the corner. Still haven't killed that skeleton, but we are now taking out the chariot hero who was giving me trouble in the corner. It comes down to just the enemy's commander, who gets hit by a whole load of those torpedo lumps. They're really oversized, those projectiles. Looks like it does the damage, plus he was disintegrating anyway. And that's that. That was a pretty cool siege battle, I thought. Definitely the best one I've seen in this game. I feel like this game is known for having not very interesting sieges, especially in comparison to other Total Wars. That was pretty good, because it felt like I did some tactics and those tactics did something. Normally, there aren't many tactics available for a siege assault, and nothing like a terrain feature you can use, like that ridge on the edge of the map. That was pretty cool. And having a giant rock walking around is interesting as well. That's that. We lost absolutely nothing, technically, because no units died. I was thinking of raising the settlement, kind of just for plot reasons. I was like, we shouldn't leave this place alive since it's a source of dark magic. But in game logic, if we blow it up, like the orc army next to me can just rebuild it instantly. I ended up going with loot and occupy, which is never really that good of an idea. It just destroys the place a little bit. Now I have to repair it if I want to use it. I thought, well, I will repair it and use it for now. I'll try and use it as a bastion, but we'll see. I then went back on that decision later on. For now, at least we can revel in our victory. Everything is fine. Revenge has been taken for those defeats we had at the hands of the Great Bows. Here is the end to the Beastman saga. They walked over there towards Zandri and disappeared during their turn, and that was the last I saw of them. I'm guessing the AI is trying to pull them off somewhere else to do something else. They're bored of killing me. Well, I didn't see them, and that's that. Unfortunate we didn't get to actually destroy them to finish things off. As for what I'm actually going to be doing now, we're back to waiting around for plot reasons mode. I want the world situation to be difficult so that I can save them. I'm effectively waiting for the Warriors of Chaos to do something. We can't see what they're doing. I was hoping they might show up here, but I don't think they appear in the south during the mid-game invasion. Maybe that's only in the end-game invasion. Well, during the delay, looks like I rebuilt Zandri. That's something. Might as well. We can sit there and regenerate our troops for a bit. Another thing we can do is make a new army, because we've now unlocked all of our units. So what I'm doing here is throwing out these infantry units under a new commander just so I can keep them for future use since they have a bit of XP. We're going to make a particularly funky army to use with Uldor, because Uldor's personal trait is that he buffs land crawlers, which are tanks, and gyrocopters. So I'm going to make a very specialist army with loads of cool stuff in it. We're going to have bombardment rocket launchers, a new thing, upgraded with Skaven technology as well. We're going to have Golden Guards, who are a super high level tank unit to act as sacrifices. We've also got our gyrocopters, 2 of them, who can deploy those heavy thunderers, and some actual tank units will deploy the Landcrawler Ironclads ×4, so they'll act both as distractionary units in the front line, and they can also act as artillery units in the back line. They have massive range and damage. That's all good then. We're going to put together this expensive late game army and wait for something to use it on. Here I am going back on my decision with the Pyramid of Nagash, because I figured we probably wouldn't leave it here. It's supposed to be a den of evil that's something to do with the undead curse keeping these skeletons alive. Figured we probably should destroy it. Nothing happens in the game if you do. And indeed, destroying it is a bad idea for the reasons mentioned earlier, not because the orcs can rebuild it, but because these Tomb Kings can rebuild it. The second I raise it, some Tomb Kings are just there outside the door. They're coming over from the east, where there's a Tomb Kings faction that I think I have like military access and trade deals with. They actually like me for some reason. Here's the big news though, the Warriors of Chaos have been defeated, as it says over there. So that's bad news for my plan of having everybody else be defeated by the Warriors of Chaos. It was only the mid-game invasion, so the real Chaos endgame hasn't started yet, but I was still disappointed. And this leads to this behind-the-scenes footage with some Advanced Wars music playing accidentally in the background by the sounds of things, where I installed the console command mod. This lets you cheat in various ways. You can turn off the fog of war for starters, and just look around, and I didn't like what I was seeing. Everything's fine, the Empire isn't even nearly destroyed, they're all doing great, the Dwarfs have taken over half the world, the High Elves have been taken out, which is nice, replaced by the Dark Elves, but they're not doing so well in their home territory. The Lizardmen are taking over everything over there. Broadly speaking, the world of untainted aligned factions is pretty powerful. It looks like we don't need Uldor's powerful redoubt against evil, or whatever the plot was back in chapter 1. So, it's time to hack things and make it better, or worse I should say, for the world, so that it's better for dramatic purposes. We can not only delete armies with this mod, but we can actually make the mid-game crisis just straight up happen again. So now we have 6 more Chaos armies ready to go, or 5 more there. What I wanted to know though is, can we get a bit more, because that's not really enough to do the level of damage I wanted. One option, well, just try and summon the mid-game crisis twice at the same time. I was fully ready for that to just crash the game, but no, it works. Now there's a load more stuff, so we can use this to our quote-unquote advantage by spamming enemy armies onto the map. It's annoying they only appear here, so they won't really interact with us, but it might cause the map to somewhat naturally move towards a destroyed and chaotic state, which we can use for our end game. You can just start the real endgame crisis using the console commands as well. However, I didn't want to. I wanted that to happen naturally, especially because we're sort of close to that sort of time. I'm not sure when it actually happens, but we're pretty late in the game technically, so it should just happen on its own soon. Another big thing we can do is blow up settlements. So this will be effectively simulating what I wanted Chaos to have done by this point. I wanted the world to be in a dismal state, and I certainly don't want the Dwarfs to be a massive faction. They're currently the #1 faction. The main thing I did then was go around and blowing up all the stuff I thought the Dwarfs probably shouldn't have, like the Orc territories. They had a bunch of human territories that I blew up, and just anything that's near me. I want them to not be anywhere near me. I did delete a couple of their armies as well, but that doesn't really matter because the AI will just instantly remake them. Losing the territories might be more of a long-term drawback for them. I also blew up a few Lizardman settlements. Didn't really pay too much attention to this side of the map, but I thought they're a force for good. I kind of don't want them around. Don't really mind the Dark Elves taking over everything. I would like to see loads of Skaven or something. That would be quite appropriate. You can use the console to make factions appear, but it looks really complicated and I didn't want to get into it. So I just stuck with that. We'll see what the Warriors of Chaos will somewhat naturally do to the world. One issue after a couple of turns here is that they kind of get stuck on stuff. they decided to raid around this random tribal settlement, and most of these armies stayed here. A couple of them walked off to do stuff and the rest just sat there raiding. I don't know if the AI can deal with having all of these armies at once or something. It just doesn't know how to use them, so it only uses a small portion at a time, which is unfortunate. We'll have to see. I'm now going to go through and wait for the world to become worse. There might even be a delay before the next part because of that. We'll have to see. So the actual campaign, in the pure game terms, is well over. We obviously have an extremely powerful faction. We could win the campaign if we wanted to. I don't care to though. I want us to nearly lose and then see what happens in the process. We'll see if I can make that happen.